everybody, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, hello, my name is Skylar. I'm a certified dog trainer and pet nutritionist. I've found myself scrolling through Reddit's Am I the Asshole a ton lately, and I had a fun little idea where I, as a certified dog trainer and someone who owns their own training company and has been working in the industry for years now, lend some of my professional experience to decide whether these pet owners are the asshole or are not. If you're unfamiliar with Reddit's Am I the Asshole, essentially someone posts a fun little story on this Reddit forum, basically asking the question, was I the asshole or am I not the asshole? I kind of feel like one. And then the users of Reddit then go and comment and essentially vote on whether they think that you are the asshole or not. Pretty self-explanatory. I've chosen a couple pet-specific Am I the Asshole stories to react to today, and maybe I will give some professional advice and some insight that may be helpful to you. Maybe you're just here for a fun story. Am I the asshole for taking my stolen dog for 2 years from a family which loved her? I adopted my dog from a shelter August 15th, 2014. It was a small-sized mutt which looked a little like a collie, so we named her Collie. Collie is the third member of our childless household of family pets. We had one more dog and a cat. We had Collie let loose to run around the neighborhood every evening, and she would come back in about 30 minutes. It wasn't that we won't walk her, she just doesn't do well on a leash and prefers to run around all by herself. Our other dog prefers to be leashed, and me or my wife would walk her every other day. One day Collie didn't return. It was 11th May 2018. We were devastated and looked for her for a few weeks. Posters with rewards, social media, and shelters. We did everything we could. Eventually we gave up and accepted that we may never see Collie again. Last month I was visiting a client's house, and on the way I happened to see Collie entertaining herself in somebody's yard. I wasn't sure at first, but the similarities were definitely there, so I called out her name, and she actually raised her head and responded. That confirmed it. I went knocking on the door and 2 children answered. The adults weren't home. Turns out the younger child of the family took Collie from the streets, thinking that she was abandoned. The family took Collie in and never bothered to find her owners. Collie had been microchipped and my contact number was on her collar. I told the 2 children that I will be taking Collie and left them my number, telling them to let their parents contact me for expenses for 2 years. I will pay them. They tried to stop me, but I warned them that they had stolen my dog, and that stopped them. I had been in contact with their parents and they've begged me to return Collie to them. They said they could even pay me for her. I said no, Collie is part of my family and that should have been thought of when they decided to keep a stolen dog. I had been running through pictures of the family's Facebook page, and from the videos and pictures it seems like they really did love her and treat her very well. Doesn't excuse them from stealing her though. Parents of the family are guilt tripping me, saying how devastated their children were. I wouldn't budge, neither would my wife, but it does make me a little sad they have separated like that. Am I the asshole? So very first things that stick out to me. One, if you are letting your dog run loose in a neighborhood, completely unsupervised every evening as their form of enrichment and walk, that in and of itself makes you the asshole. Does it answer the question of I stole back my dog? Is that the asshole? We're not even there yet. If you are letting your dog just like run loose in your neighborhood, you are an asshole. And that's for a couple of reasons. First off, it's probably completely against the law. Most places do have leash laws, which require dogs to be on leash when in public spaces. Those laws aren't heavily enforced, but they're definitely there for a reason, which brings me to point number 2. It's incredibly dangerous. It's incredibly dangerous to your dog. They could get run over, they could get stolen, they could get hurt by other dogs, cats, animals, etc. Depending on where you live, you might be dealing with bears, cougars, that kind of thing, coyotes that could get your dog. It's also incredibly unsafe to the other people and pets in your neighborhood. Your dog could potentially hurt or potentially kill other animals in the neighborhood, whether it be dogs, cats. Your pets should not be killing animals out in the streets. That's completely unethical and unnecessary. It could also cause damage to people or property. All of those make it extremely irresponsible, and if you want your dog to have off-leash opportunities, finding enclosed spaces that you can take them, taking them to off-leash areas, taking them to dog parks, as much as I'm not a huge fan of dog parks, that's totally an option. Sniff Spot is a new great thing where basically people like rent out spaces of their land where you can take your dogs and have them have that off-leash opportunity. Using the excuse of your dog not having good leash manners as the reason for just kind of saying see you later is bullshit. you can teach your dog some leash manners. Or you can just safely and responsibly find better alternatives. So that in and of itself is something that stood out to me as particularly maybe putting me a bias against this person. Alright, so to get down to the actual question of should this guy have actually stolen back his dog that he thought was stolen from him 2 years ago? I think legally the dog is his, especially if he can prove, like with a microchip, that the dog is his. However, morally, I have some more opinions about this, because based on this particular story, I don't want to say that he necessarily was irresponsible because he wanted to be irresponsible. There are a lot of things that people just aren't aware of and don't think about. I do think that, not being responsible with his dog's walking habits is an asshole move, but maybe he just wasn't aware of the risk factors. But yeah, looks like Reddit voted this one the asshole, and I would love to hear your opinions on this, because ultimately, if it were me in this situation, there's no way that I would take my dog back from the children at the very least. I'd at least wait till adults were home, have a discussion about it, not take a dog from children. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Our next story, am I the asshole for making my son walk the dog? My wife, 39 female, and I, 42 male, have 3 sons, Alex 15, Dylan 11, and Jake 8. When I was a kid, I always wanted a dog, but my parents said no. I never got the chance to get one during my 20s, but recently my interest in owning one was sparked again, so I asked my family what they thought about getting a dog. My wife wasn't enthusiastic about it, but she relented after a few weeks of me asking. Alex and Jake were excited to get one, but Dylan was immediately opposed to the idea. Dylan was always different than my other sons. He never had an interest in sports and was always more subdued than his brothers, which has always made it hard for me to connect with him. He remained opposed to the idea of getting a dog, but me and my other sons managed to wear him down until he finally relented. However, he said that if he did get a dog, he wasn't going to be interacting with it or taking care of it. That would be completely on me and his brothers. I found this ridiculous, but I agreed in the moment, hoping he would change his mind after meeting the dog. The problem is, he hasn't changed his mind yet. We've had Zeus for 7 months now, and Dylan has not warmed up to him in the slightest. He doesn't play with the dog, he doesn't cuddle with him, he doesn't let Zeus into his room because he destroys stuff, and whenever he is near the dog, he just ignores him. I find this completely ridiculous. Zeus loves Dylan, he follows him around whenever he sees him and jumps on him to get his attention and play, but Dylan just isn't receptive to it. To change this, I told Dylan last week that he would be in charge of walking the dog every day after school. Dylan straight up refused, and he's shut down the conversation every time I bring it up. It's been a week and it hasn't walked the dog once. In my frustration, I told him that if he didn't start listening, then I wouldn't allow him to go to the comic book store anymore, and he freaked and told my wife. Now, my wife is upset with me, claiming that I knew what I was getting into with this, and I knew that Dylan wouldn't be playing with the dog, but his intolerance of the dog is weird, and I refuse to entertain it any longer. My wife has been short with me ever since the conversation, and Dylan is cold with me as well. Alex is now agreeing with his mother, which is making me have second thoughts. So Reddit, am I the asshole? I have a lot of opinions about this. As some of you may know, I specifically do positive reinforcement and force-free training, which means that things like force and coercion are just not part of the training vernacular. And this post is just illustrating that that should also be applied to the pet owners, which is something that I'm very passionate about. Sounds like this child never wanted the dog, didn't want the dog. You had to wear him down to get him to be okay with having the dog. And honestly, depending on family dynamic, I mean, this is an 11-year-old. Depending on family dynamic, having a dog or a pet in the home is one thing. Expecting your child who does not like that pet to interact with that pet is a whole nother thing. So to use an example, I have some fun pets. I have a leopard gecko, I've had scorpions in the past. Those are all normal, like creepy, crawly, most people don't like them pets. I'm not going to force someone in my household to interact with those pets if they aren't comfortable with it. They're my pets, they're my responsibility. I decided to make that decision to get those as pets. Sure, I might ask a favor when my sister comes over to watch my house and my pets while I'm traveling. If you could feed the lizard, that'd be great. But But if she's uncomfortable with it, and the same thing goes with like feeding my dogs raw, she knows to let me know and I will find someone else to fill that role. Decisions that I made for myself, for my pets, and I am not keen on burdening other people with that. And that's what this post is really reeking of, is I made a decision. I don't like the way you're reacting to this decision because you've been against it the whole time, but I went along with it anyway. And so now, like, using walking the dog every day as a punishment for not enjoying the dog is just gonna build further resentment towards the dog, and that's not great for the kids' relationship with dogs in general, kids' relationship with potentially pets in general, kids' relationship with you especially. So all of those red flags, very red flags, so many red flags. You know, you obviously have the dog now. I'm not necessarily recommending that the dog gets rehomed, especially if, you know, the kid is okay with the dog being in the household. It's something that we can compromise on. However, you know, that child doesn't need additional chores that are related to the dog. I think having the dog not destroy their belongings is a very good boundary, and some training could be benefit. If this child was interested in being involved in training, then that could be a great way of bonding while still helping to empower the kid to build those boundaries with the dog of, you know, if you enter my space, I know that I can get you to leave. And that, even knowing that, makes them more open to allowing the dog to hang out in their room a little bit more when they know that they can easily get them to leave or to leave it of their items when appropriate. It's when punishment's used, coercion's used, whether you're training your dog or dealing with household members, that things can go south. You get resentment. Yeah, this is just inappropriate, and this dad is absolutely the asshole and needs to kind of come together as a family and figure out what to do about that. Am I the asshole for getting a dog? To make this short, I live with 3 roommates and we all cohabitate pretty well until I decided to get a puppy. We initially agreed that we would all have to unanimously agree upon any animals entering the house, even if it's just friends or family visiting. And since that agreement, all we have is 1 cat, a 6-year-old orange tabby. I've always wanted a dog. I was not secretive to my roommates about it, and when I was offered one by a neighbor, I jumped at the chance and told them I wanted one. I texted my roommates pictures and asked which one I should get. All 3 of them said we'd have to discuss it first, but I told them I had already agreed to bring one home. Later I got home and they all got upset with me for agreeing to adopting a puppy without discussing it, even citing the rule we had. I told them they should have known I would have gotten one once I could, and they always knew I wanted one. The argument got pretty heated and I resolved to bring the puppy home anyway. After a month or 2 I did, and it went badly. The puppy was loud and whiny and shout all night because she was in a new place, and my roommate started telling me I need to keep her in my room and keep her quiet so that we could go to work. I couldn't always do this because I work night shift. I told them that she probably just needed to go pee or something so they could just take her outside, but they got upset again and said they didn't agree to the dog and didn't take responsibility for it. So more months went by and the puppy still goes in the house when I'm busy because my roommates won't take her out, and bites the ankles of people who walk by, which I admit can be annoying. She's only 10 months old. And my roommates were getting annoyed and telling me I need to train her. I'm busy with some MMO friend groups, which are in different time zones, and then I sleep and then get up for my night shift. Sometimes I can't take her out to train her and asked for their help, but they refuse. Came to a head earlier this week when I walked into the puppy trying to mount the cat and biting pretty hard on his scruff and tugging him around. I got her off of him, but my roommate, the cat's owner, came in and was so mad she screamed at me to get rid of the dog, move out, or she's going to snap. I said no when my roommates called me an asshole, but I don't think so. I might be an ass because I didn't discuss the puppy with them, but I think that because they don't even try to like her, am I really that much of a jerk? Edit, I should add, the house we live in is owned by one of the roommates who is married to the cat owner. The other roommate is a friend of ours who joined in to help keep bills low. I think this one's like, clearly you're the asshole. Let's just, for a second, the house is owned by 2 of the roommates. There are 4 roommates. 2 of the roommates presumably own the house. 1 roommate owns the house if their partner is also there. You're dealing with the homeowner. If the homeowner says you cannot have a dog or we all have to discuss pets, then the homeowner says you cannot have a dog or we all have to discuss pets. Now, I'll be the first to admit that especially growing up, I was extremely annoying and pushy in regards to pets with my parents. We were very much a pet household growing up. We had guinea pigs and a gerbil and rabbits and dog and fish and bearded dragon and bird and all sorts of things, not all at the same time, but we consistently throughout our whole childhoods had pets. And it's not because my parents are pet people. My parents are actually not anti-pet, but like neither of them really grew up with pets, and had they not had a bunch of kids who loved animals, would not have had pets in their house, like maybe a fish tank. But here we are with me and my zoo in my own space. But ultimately, like, if it's a homeowner thing, then no. Like, you can not live here anymore and have the pet, or you can continue to live here and not have the pet. So that in and of itself is, you know, you're dealing with the homeowner. All 4 roommates have agreed that no pet is coming into the house, even if it's just visiting, unless everybody agrees, which I think, especially in like a cohabitation roommate situation, is a great boundary to have ahead of time and to express. Again, setting those boundaries nicely ahead of time is a great way to help keep this situation from happening and not have built up resentment with your roommates. This whole situation reeks of, I want a puppy, I love the idea of having a puppy, but I'm not ready for the responsibility of having the puppy. Sounds like, you know, a neighbor's dog got pregnant and had puppies. They decided this is my chance to get the puppy. They even had to wait a month or 2, it sounds like, before they even brought the puppy home, which is plenty of time to back out of it and say like, hey, with my living situation, I cannot have a puppy, I'm sorry. But it sounds like not much thought was put into that. And then also like putting that responsibility on other people. It reminds me of the last one where the dad wanted the dog, so he's going to put responsibilities onto someone who's very vocal about not wanting the dog. Like I said, it's not a winning situation. It's not. Personally, I think between barking and whining, which is normal for puppies, the ankle biting, which is pretty normal for puppies, at 10 months, if we're not potty trained yet, it's either a vet visit or, you know, dealing with a professional who can help you potty train your dog. To me, it seems like a lot of excuses of not creating time to meet the puppy's needs, which isn't fair for the puppy, it isn't fair for the roommates. You should not have gotten a puppy at this point in your life. If you find yourself in the situation where you are responsible enough to have a dog, which this poster seems to be lacking, but you don't have the living situation to support that, I would 100% recommend finding a local animal shelter and volunteering. That's a great way to kind of get the dog itch, because you get to play with the dogs, interact with the dogs, help to meet their needs. You can do some low-level basic training in a lot of places to help get them better able to be adopted out. For years and years and years, I volunteered at my local animal shelter, and that was honestly really, really important to kind of me becoming the person that I am today, especially having a career in dog training and behavior. If I were to give this person advice, it would be to absolutely not get the puppy, because it sounds like they were not emotionally mature or responsible enough to care for it in the first place, even if they did have a circumstance where it was accepted in their living situation. And if they really, really wanted to interact with a dog and kind of take those initial first steps, you know, volunteering, spending some time at the shelter would have been a much better alternative to being unfair to the puppy and unfair to the roommates. Like, this is, in my opinion, just a very selfish situation. Definitely let me know what you guys thought of these stories. I would love to read your comments down below and kind of get your takes on these am I the asshole scenarios. Obviously, just a little disclaimer so that I can feel better about making this video. Obviously, if these were clients of mine coming to me for advice, I would not be so blatantly critical. We'd be more in a problem-solving state. We'd be talking a little bit more with kid gloves about how to do things better in the future, how to work through the issues that are there. But since we're just pals, and we're friends, and we're just having a good time, you get the unfiltered little truth scenarios of what I sometimes think in my head. when dealing with these kinds of things. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, but then also, like, if you could be actually pretty vocal down in the comments below, since this is a new style of video. I have no idea how it's gonna do. Do we like being a little bit critical and have some fun entertainment? Are we maybe not so interested in this style of video? Definitely let me know if you want me to make more. There's plenty of Am I the Asshole pet posts that we can go through and kind of critique, and if you guys are into it, I'm into it. I thought that this was pretty fun, so definitely let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel if you've not already. I primarily do a lot of training and nutrition videos on here, so definitely if that is up your alley, feel free to give us a subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram. I have 2 different Instagram accounts. Tattoo.dogtrainer is like my personal thing. It's more like YouTube-y, a little bit more real life. You can also follow me at Top Dog Behavior, which is my company account. So that's gonna be more, you know, educational, more training and nutrition focused, some fun infographics that you can share with friends and family. So if you're into that, feel free to check out that account as well. Either way, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for sticking around, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!